Check one. Are we live? We're live. I'm unshushed.
Drop the link in Slack or somewhere or out on Meetup.
Put it on Meetup.
Is it all right? Okay, yeah.
I can put it in Slack.
No, that's fine. Oh, I can scoop it off Meetup. Just wanted to join, see what it looks like.
So welcome everybody. Meteor Charlotte. On board 101.
2016.
2016. Doing it.
Super excited.
Much excited.
We did not really have a presentation planned, but we talked about it today a little bit, a few of us, and someone mentioned testing, and I could kind of catch everybody up on some Meteor testing stuff.
Yes. That would be the plan.
Is that exciting? Is that exciting for everyone?
Super excited.
Somebody joined. Who
I'm
joined?
joining.
Oh,
I just
okay.
want to.
I was getting excited, and then I was getting excited until I realized it's one of us that joins a lot of times. So, I'm like, someone was just really monitoring that Meetup page.
Couldn't wait.
Couldn't stand it.
Somebody may join yet. It's fine. We're recording. It's out. It'll be out there.
Yeah, we'll get it on YouTube. I guess just some initial business just for the sake of, having Jeff. I think Jeff showed up at Charlotte last month and nobody was there, and I have a feeling that may have happened a month or so before that someone else sounded like, but I can't remember who. So I've reached out to a couple of times. I've reached out to Jill and Torby, just asking them, hey, if you're going to do it, let me know if you want to keep it up. Otherwise, I'm going to kill off the meetups because I don't want people showing up, and getting ticked off at the group as a whole, thinking that it's happening. And if they don't want to do it, I totally understand that too. It's a lot to run and stuff. And with all that said, whether or not they continue that, the Charlotte one at Hacker Place, kind of like we did with the Charlotte, I'm encouraging anybody that asks or complains about going to Concord, I'm suggesting that they are more than free to do a meetup. Meetup, you can go and say, schedule a meetup, and you can book a meetup and they can get a place. And the only thing I would ask is try to do it outside the week. That's what we did here. We're doing it outside the week of the other meetup because we don't want to create internal competition within the group that creates, like, where do I go? So if they do it on an off week, that's perfect. They can meet, because Charlotte's just a big area. And so, and we did that that was really successful with the Charlotte and the POS group. We had the North University one, and there was one that met in Uptown. And at some point there were ones that met in South Charlotte. So, it works really good. It's just the issue winds up being that someone has to want it bad enough to run it. One of those locations and keep it consistent and all that. And we'll be glad to support anybody and get the word out and help them out all we can. But I'm not going to tweet about it unless I know it's really happening and people are going to, they're going to run it well and all that stuff. And I definitely thank Jill and Torby for kind of getting it started and getting us there. I mean, this group's been active since probably January of 2013.
2013 or 2014?
14.
I want to say 2014.
2014 probably.
Yeah.
And still, that's a pretty good run
Mm-hmm.
especially for a JavaScript framework that's failing.
Right.
More about that tonight probably.
It's failing.
It's failing. If you hang out in certain circles, there is much uproar in the JavaScript community and much confusion. I'm watching these devs in Meteor Club just go, do I use React today? Do I use Redux today? Do I use Node today? Express today? I'm like, you might want to pick something and just use it and make apps.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, how about just
Because nothing's
develop?
perfect, and you should find something to make apps and not change every day. It's pretty hilarious. It's fine though to experiment with stuff and be aware of what's out there, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not in a panic. Apparently, some developers get in a panic. So, and I think some of this is just natural. It's early stages of JavaScript's going to do a lot of changes, and it's early stages for a lot of things, and I think that some of that stuff happens. It's fairly normal. But at any rate, a lot has changed. Speaking of change, and I will say this, that we can talk some more about it tonight, but you know, the MVG has definitely done some things that haven't helped their case, but they've also done fine, in my opinion. There's plenty of things that they've done fine
well
on that people just beat them up about. And frankly, I don't look at the MVG. They are supposed to be they're supposed to answer all my needs. They don't owe me anything. So it sounds like we
That wasn't me.
had someone else join. I see someone.
Is that Valaire's forehead? No.
No, who is that?
JJ?
Josh.
Is that
It's Shootery Josh.
No,
did he go live?
the huggable.
Yeah, Josh Jenkins. Hey, Josh Jenkins. I hope you can hear us. And Josh, we can record, which this is a good time since Josh Jenkins joined. Josh is leading a practical security meetup that's going to happen the third Thursday of every month here, and that happens this Thursday. Is the inaugural meetup, and I think that's going to be pretty fun. So we'll probably just Zoom. One of us can run it that has a Zoom account. Pro account, so we do longer than 40 minutes. We'll do the same deal. We'll record and kind of get in the habit of uploading videos and stuff. Now that we've been through that discussion, we figured it out tonight live.
You are in such form, man.
So, and but anyway, but Josh has got some stuff. He's talking about Wi-Fi this week and kind of securing Wi-Fi and stuff. And I think it'll be fun. So lots coming there. Josh, did you want to say anything about your meetup?
No, but hey, how are y'all?
Good, man.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited about my meetup. I'm excited for this one to watch you guys and see how this goes tonight.
Well, it's off to a stellar start.
There's much Shrop excitement.
A lot of excitement.
How was Asheville?
I don't know. I was in Boone.
Asheville, Boone, it's kind of the same, ain't it?
Not really. There are mountains. There are mountains, and that's about it. They're quite different areas. Quite different in a lot of ways. But I like both of them for different reasons. But Boone was cool. Had a good time. Found some good places to eat. Highly recommend the Lost Province Brewery, which is amazing.
Cool.
Okay.
Lost Province. Apparently, the history is they actually refer to the Appalachians as the Lost Province because it was a place that they needed to cut through and get trade through in the United States, but it was looked at as really hard to get through and because you got to imagine, I mean, somebody had to make roads through the mountains initially, and that. We were noting while we were driving through Bowling Rock that they're still working on the same 1 mile of road for the last 15 years. So I'm assuming that they were better at roads back then than they are now. So I'm a little confused. But anyway.
Well, this is entropy in action, man.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, but it's so they refer to the Appalachians and that whole area as the Lost Province. Because it was there, it was important, but it was cut off from the rest of the world that people felt like, I guess, which was probably made the people that lived there just fine. They were probably just happy like that. So it was good stuff. And let's see, so check out the practical security meetup this Thursday night. I think it starts at 6:30 at HD5 Cowork. And then, let's see. So I guess we can talk about, get into does anybody else have any businessy stuff? Any media news, anything?
I'm interested in digging in at some point, maybe next meetup, into this whole Blaze 2 versus Angular versus React.
Yeah, I was ready for that.
Yeah.
For me, I mean,
I
that doesn't
understand.
mean someone else doesn't have info on it. I know Jeff's been doing some React stuff, I think.
Yeah.
But
I could do my 2 cents on it. At
Yeah.
some point.
well, if you could, Brian, why don't you like edit the next one when you get a chance and just throw a subject matter in there, and that way we
Okay.
don't forget. And then,
Yep.
what we could do is maybe folks comment on what they want to bring. Like if Jeff feels capable to talk a bit about React, then I volunteer for Blaze.
Okay.
And if somebody else is doing something else, they can
Angular?
talk about something else.
Maybe we can get somebody to come talk about Angular.
Yeah. Or if somebody wants to just do a comparison, I think if we spent some time, we shouldn't have time today, but if we spent some time, there's probably some good write-ups that we can kind of go through as a group to talk about the differences. And I do believe that Meteor 1.3 is going to change a lot of this anyway and make a lot of things better, because Meteor 1.3 is going to allow for module support, which is
NPM? Or what are
well.
we
So
talking
this
about?
is what's confusing. When they say modules, I went through this with Thomas Lattimore, talking to him about it one morning. I think the modules that they're talking about, they are going to have some more native NPM module support. Like I think there's going to be ways you can actually just require an NPM right in your code somehow.
Okay.
It sounds like, and I don't have details on that, and probably need to stop right there. But the modules they're talking about is in JavaScript. I'll start a screen share. Actually, it's let's see if I search JavaScript module. There's I know Mozilla's got it. So JavaScript modules is actually a way of compartmentalizing your code, and making it where you can basically do imports like this. You can import you can have actually files that have almost feels like classes in a sense, but you can just import that code right into anywhere that you want to use it. So it's also reusable, which is nice. So it's not NPM stuff, and that's what confuses
Well,
me.
I was just going to say, I mean, I stumbled across the same thing with one of the Meteor Chef articles that he's already doing that with. I'm doing it actually in this app I've got now.
Yeah.
Too. So I'm, creating essentially, it's just a JavaScript file. You can call it modules, client, current email, whatever, and then you can call that your code elsewhere in your React component, for example.
But are you doing an import?
You don't have to do an import. You just call that file.
But what do you do to call it? Like
You just say.
let's find the
So like I'm doing in React, you can do let me just pull one up. Start rambling. It may not be the same thing.
There's a folder called modules. This one.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Like at the end of my modules, at the end of this JavaScript file, this particular one, I'm checking emails, I'm checking whether it's a Facebook email address or whether the user authenticated with a username and password, and they write an email and a password, and you just define your module name at the end of that file, and you can call it in your component. And I'm just trying to get through my code and find where I've done that. I think it's user file somewhere.
He's doing something here that says modules.client.startup equals startup. So it makes it look like he's going to use just the word startup in places because he's linked that.
Yeah.
Does that sound
I'm
right?
using that same syntax. And it's a little bit confusing. I got an error when I tried to use just startup. I had to call actually modules.client.startup or modules.client.email or whatever.
Yeah.
Later on. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong, but I have to call it. I don't know what 23 is going to do specifically. I just wonder if it's similar.
It looks to be that's the kind of modules that I was understanding they were doing. The idea of JavaScript modularity. I'm curious what version of Meteor he's running, and if he's got if extra. He's using 121. He's got Babel. He's got Babel in his project, which does some fancy stuff to allow you to I think it allows you to basically use certain JavaScript pieces that are in the newer versions of JavaScript, but using it in Meteor now, even though Meteor doesn't have it, and it relates to this ECMAScript module here. This came out in Meteor 1.2, I think. If you already had a project, you had to add it, but new projects would have that ECMAScript, I think, already included. And that gives you, I think that's part of the module stuff is the ECMAScript business too. And you notice he's using that let command or whatever, that let method. I don't know if it's a method or command, but using let all over, that's another part of it. It's ECMAScript, which I don't really understand all of that or any of it.
It's something like localization, but I can't, paraphrasing that, but it's something like global versus local. It has something to do with scope.
That makes sense.
Let lets you do function scope as opposed to file, which works in the inner scope. That works.
So Meteor, here's right straight from one of the Meteor core devs, Avatar. Meteor 1.3 gives full ES6, which is also known as ES 2015 module support and better NPM support. Apps and packages can now load NPM modules that are installed via NPM install on client and on server, amongst other benefits. Modules let you control the load order in a more precise way than naming your files in special ways, which that is something important. I was reading further in this issue is that they're basically deprecating all that business. You know how Meteor, it loads the files further out in the directory first. That's all going away. I think they're gonna keep it for a while, so legacy stuff and organizational work, but more or less you can follow more standard JavaScript practices for affecting the order of how things load, which means just what he's saying here. Like there's been situations on apps where we worked on here at HV5 where we had to actually name a file a certain way, so left, right, which felt just, even at that point, felt terrible. Like that just doesn't feel like, I shouldn't have to have, the name of my file should only be the name of the file. It should not have to do with how it loads ideally, but here, if you want to try it out, you can install Meteor, the modules beta here. But yeah, I need to learn more about how this works. Also, so it does. So So Brian, to your point, it does matter about NPM as far as, it does relate to NPM as far as being able to install, say, NPM in client and server without doing any weird, like you could do.
So NPM packages in essence are first-class citizens.
Yeah, you can basically have a package JSON in the root of your Meteor app, and you can basically do an NPM. You could just, part of your install process says run NPM install in your, you know, once you download it from GitHub, and then run it, because your app will, can then look for those NPM modules in the node modules directory.
Cool.
So it's pretty neat. Like I said, I hate talking too much about this because I don't have an understanding, but Jeff, it sounds like you're up for presenting next month.
I've just gone by that example with stuff out there.
Yeah. Do you think you could just demo your app since it's got?
I could.
Is it something that you can show?
Show it. I mean, it's.
Well,
I'm not using that specific functionality, but I could definitely show it if you want to talk about that specifically. You know, how you write it and then where you call it. I mean,
that'd be awesome. We'll plan on that for next month.
Okay.
If that works out, and then that'll give you time to kind of think through it and stuff. But you know, anything, and I think then we can have a bigger discussion. I'll be glad to do some research. Anybody else here? We have a bigger discussion about what's coming with Angular, what's coming with these other pieces too. Because that's what Brian was actually talking about at first too, was comparing. It does seem like React is kind of the one that people are gravitating towards. But I hear it just mixed. There's a mixed bag of pro and con. Like there is no.
It's hard because you try to find. I mean, I'm trying to find a lot of examples, and there just aren't any right now.
Yeah, I hear that. Your documentation is not there.
So like React has great documentation, but it's not written for Meteor. You know, Meteor's adapted it and kind of rolled it into a Meteor code, and so it's a little bit different as far as how you render it, slightly. But overall, I like having the JavaScript and the HTML or the XML really in one file. It's kind of compartmentalizing a little bit.
I can't remember what it searched for, but there was like about a week or so ago, there was a post that made the rounds on forums.meteor that was kind of giving the MDG's stance on that whole like Blaze and React on it. And it's kind of like they're saying that now they're going to support Blaze after they said they might not. They're going to support Blaze for as long as they can foresee right now, and that, but it kind of left it like, but maybe React might be the thing.
Right.
It was super confusing to me. Like,
yeah, that's part of what's driving my curiosity, because there are a whole lot of advantages to the way Blaze has been architected that are going to go away if they go to React, unless they somehow or other
Blaze
modify React.
Blaze is super easy to teach people and get them going. That's a big advantage of Meteor. And that was actually a philosophical thing with Meteor. Whereas when you get into React, I think it feels like for a beginner, that's a big deal. Like if you're already a developer, it's probably a lot of developers already developing and probably like a lot of things about React, you know, because of the organization and stuff. But
if you're trying to go to Atmosphere and find a package that work with your React app, good luck.
Yeah,
you have to figure out.
It's almost like you're having to write stuff from scratch.
You have to figure out how to rewrite it, or you have to figure out how to write it in Blaze and then use Blaze to React or something like that to convert it. You know, so if your Atmosphere package, you know, is using Blaze and you need that functionality, you're going to have to put it in. You know, it's using a template helper or something. You're going to have to use Blaze to React or one of those that helps you extract that into your React code.
Well, cool. We'll talk more about that next month. I think that'll be a really great topic and timely, and maybe we'll know more information by next month, because by then they'll move on to something else. So we'll talk about whatever that thing is.
We'll move on to
Redux.
Redux or chest drawers.
Yeah, JS. Vue.js.
Vue.js.
Yeah. Well, cool. I can chat about testing stuff. So I don't know who in here has used Velocity for testing before.
Had
most
some
of us-
exposure to that, yeah.
Most of us have done a little bit with it, even minimal. But so a little bit of this is history as I understand it. So I'll qualify it with I may miss something or whatever, but I think there's a great post, and I'll find it where Sam Hatoum kind of gave the history of it a little better, but I'll try to give a concise one. When Meteor was launched, pretty much initially, it seems like the only testing system they had was called TinyTest, and it was included originally to test packages. And it's a real simple framework. I think they invented it. It's based off, these are computer sciencey developers, and if you look at MBG, most of them computer science degrees, they're the pros, but they've done testing before, and I think they just said, well, we'll just make our own testing thing.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, everybody makes their decisions on those things. But it's real similar to other testing things, but it's really only geared for packages. It really didn't provide end-to-end testing. It provided the unit integration testing across the whole Meteor app. So some people who had a lot of testing experience in the community, a number of people got together and formed Velocity. I think Velocity was actually maybe called something else before that, but it wound up being called Velocity. And Velocity provided out of the box an HTML runner, which would show you in your app. You could put the little target-looking thing in the upper right-hand corner, and it would actually show you the tests, which ones run, which ones failed. You could install other runners. They made it kind of like an API, or it is an API, so that you could actually, and people did, integrate other testing frameworks. So the main supported ones that kind of came to be the ones that people gravitate towards was people seemed like they were using Jasmine a lot, and they were using Cucumber, and then some people might have used, I think, Mocha, and there's a few others that were in the mix, but we wound up, some of the apps that I've worked on, we wound up using Cucumber and Jasmine for the most part, because you kind of have to just pick something and go with it. This is back to the whole thing, like, I'm a big believer in pick your thing, nothing be perfect, you got to make things work, and you can spend a year playing with what's the next thing, and never get it done. Because I promise you this, Facebook's not sitting there with their developers every day going, oh, what should we use tomorrow? That's probably why they just finally made their own system so they could just use it. But they're not, I guarantee you those guys are using GraphQL and React and all that stuff that they're building because they want standards too. So at any rate,
It's for me to I'm not here.
at any rate, Velocity was really pluggable. There were some disadvantages in the fact that it had to bootstrap the entire Meteor app, which severely slowed it down. And there's already been like history, if you've been around Meteor for a while, where certain versions, like when you would make a file change, certain versions would take longer for build times, and then they would approve it, and it would take longer. And that's always going to be a battle.
Up and down and up and down.
Yeah, and that's just part of the growth, the initial growth, I think, of the Meteor world. But waiting for a whole build to happen before any test can run is a little nutty, because unit tests should be able to run outside the context,
Right.
which we'll talk about
Stubbed and mocked.
here. That's common. So Velocity was kind of where it's at. There came a point where there were, and I'm just, because I'm going to mess up the history a little bit here, so I'm just going to put it this way. There were some things that the Velocity team needed in Meteor Core to make Velocity work correctly and to make it better and to improve it. And there were pull requests that were submitted to Meteor. Maybe some things got in and some things didn't, but it made it where just moving forward with Velocity, no one was mad or anything, I don't think, but just making Velocity move forward became just really hard when those things weren't getting included in the core Meteor. So basically, Exolvio, which is Sam Hatoum, and I think maybe a couple of other partners of his, basically they turned over Velocity since they kind of represented Velocity, Velocity wasn't all in. There were other people that worked on it in the community, but they kind of were keeping things running, and they more or less turned it over to MDG. In fairness, they kind of dumped it in MDG's lap, from what I understand, and said, "Here it is."
Right, Chimp?
And so, yeah, so MDG did not really take Velocity and say, "I mean, we're going to continue working with it." Now, I don't blame MDG for that. MDG probably had other priorities, and they weren't ready to take it. They might have looked at it and said, "That's a pile of poo." I don't know, but in other words, I guess what I'm saying is everybody took sides on this thing. It seemed like it got really weird. I don't think Sam and those guys are super professional through it, and I don't know that they even expected MDG to take it on. I think they just kind of were like, we can't seem to continue to do this because we're beating our head against the wall. So what it finally looked like was Sam and them did what they needed to do, MDG did what they needed to do. I don't think anybody was at fault here. I think the good news is, out of that, it's probably not a bad thing to let Velocity, when you look at it now in hindsight a little bit, and there's not much hindsight yet, but it might make sense to let Velocity die on the vine. It was awesome for a lot of reasons. It got things moving. There were issues with it. In addition to the load time, Velocity did not, certainly in the in testing, it had non-blocking code that you're writing, and we had troublesome apps where, like, writing Cucumber tests where we could not control the order the tests ran in, and we also, certain things would fire when we weren't expecting them, and every time you run a Velocity test, it ran in a different order, and there was no explanation why, and it drove developers crazy, and that forced developers to put in weird weights and stuff like that in code, which really felt like a hack, because you were trying to make something like blocking code in a system that really was not blocking. So, and I just saw people struggling with this. If they were here, I know Mark Bellairs had some issues with that. Luis did a bunch on that. If you guys know Luis, I think ultimately they could probably comment better on it, but they definitely just beat their head against the wall on that stuff. I've got to, for a number of Meteor apps, I have to be able to have some way to do testing and all that. And along came Chimp, which is a system that runs completely external of Meteor. So unlike Velocity, it can actually it needs Velocity, it needs Meteor to be running, but it actually runs its tests from the outside looking in. Has nothing. It doesn't try to hook itself inside Meteor. It literally connects to a DDP session. So it acts like it's a client, and it can use Selenium and WebDriver and Phantom. Uses different types of testing systems that will allow it to emulate browsers and clients, browsers, things like that. But I think it's just chimpjs.com. And it's really slick. It's really cool. We'll show you some of that here. But you install it with just npm install Chimp. And it's even got a watch mode, so that if you, in your tests, if you do an app watch above your scenario in a like a Cucumber test, it will actually only run those tests. So let's say you're in development mode, you can literally just, let's say you wrote a test, you're about to do some development, you wrote your test, you could say app watch above your scenario in Cucumber, and it would just sit there and run that test over and over as you're working on the code.
Are you sharing your desktop, by the way?
Yeah. So anyway, this is not a whole thing about Chimp, but Chimp's a big part of it. The other piece that's happening is Sam, all right, so Exolvio, Sam's company, and like I said, he's got some other partners. I don't want to make it sound just him because I don't know the structure of this company and all that, but there's some really cool people doing good work there. But they basically have they have a product, Simeon, which is kind of a cool product to check out, and it's got a goal of allowing like managers or project managers to write tests, and write them in a real simple way, even a little more straightforward than just straight up Gherkin and things like that. But anyway, they've got a product. So all this stuff kind of supports hopefully their commercial endeavors so they can make money. That's awesome. That's the way open source should be. But Sam has done a bunch of work on this repo for automated testing. It's automated testing best practices. And this, even if you didn't use this stuff, like his info here is awesome just to read. So it's well written, talks about good habits and how to write tests and some practical application. So this is kind of like him putting together the recommended ways that he would test Meteor apps. And a couple of things here is he's including in this. So this is just a test repo you can pull down, and it has a Meteor app. So you can play around with Chimp and stuff like that, and I'll demo that. But he's got Wallaby, which is an extension.
You can't say Wallaby.
Why?
You know, can't say Wallaby.
Why? I have no idea. I don't know.
I'm being oppressed.
Oh. Yeah. It probably does have some context, but I don't know. Does premium have a context? Sounds like it. So this is a premium thing, and so I kind of just ignored that. Plus, it's an IDE extension, and I'm kind of like, well, that sounds fine. But that, like, whatever. It actually works with, I think it works with Vim and stuff. That's fine. Karma is a tool. If you don't use Wallaby, you can use Karma to run your tests every time. So I've played around using Karma. I think I can get that going for the demo, but that'll just let tests run continuous. And Chimp is really the core, the way I see it, and that's what handles all of the end-to-end testing. And it supports Mocha and Cucumber right now, and it's really made more for end-to-end and acceptance testing type scenarios, like writing, Gherkin and things like that. But it's not. I think they're headed towards. So basically, here's the deal: they're headed towards using with Meteor 1.3 drops and module supports out there. That's going to make it where part of the goal here is part of 1.3 release is supposed to support doing unit tests without having to bootstrap all of Meteor. In other words, you should be able to write your code in a way that's unit testable, where you just call the file and you give it the input, you give the output, it can run in like milliseconds for unit tests. That's the journey. And so really, at this point, there is not a good solution for unit testing unless you want to mess around with velocity. He's got velocity in this repo. I'm sort of ignoring velocity for right now. I'm just waiting for 1.3 because I think 1.3 is going to drop in the next month or so anyway. And I don't really want to use velocity at all because it's going away. I don't want to be dependent on it and have to deal with it. But he actually mentions here Whirlwind. Okay, Whirlwind is a deal where you can basically run some tests in parallel. So they actually, Sam and another guy did a presentation, and I think it was similar to Whirlwind stuff. It may have been the same. It may be Whirlwind before it was named that, but basically they were firing off and running tests in parallel on AWS services, and this kind of like Sauce Labs. I mean, using a remote service to handle your test runs.
Yeah.
But they would run in parallel so that you could knock them out faster. I'm not worried about that right now, but that would be handy to look at as you get a huge testing library and you need to deal with it. Meteor Jasmine this is the velocity stuff. Basically, velocity is the most effective way to do app level tests. I am ignoring it, and I'm focusing right now on the end-to-end testing using Cucumber, because the way I'm looking at it is it's better to have some tests than no tests. End-to-end tests cover a lot of things. You wouldn't want to stick with it as the only testing for good, because there's things that end-to-end test might not catch that a unit test could catch, for instance. So I'm not saying that this is the way it should be. I'm
Just
saying
kind of waiting
just
for.
waiting because I don't want to redo stuff. But Meteor Jasmine is what they're saying you could do if you wanted to use that now. And I've gone back and forth. Part of me wants to go ahead and use it because I could go ahead and quickly write some Jasmine stuff, and I've already got some. But then the other part of me is like, I'm just going to wait and be patient. It seems like everything, saying it now makes more sense than me going, oh, I think you should use this and then rewrite all that stuff or rework it later. The rewrites, by the way, between Mocha and Jasmine and Chai and some of those test framework, the tests look real similar. I mean, even like PHP unit and stuff like that, all these testing frameworks are super similar. They have a describe, and they usually have an expect of some sort, and they have some actions like that, and they're all real similar.
PHP units, their asserts, and then the JavaScript framework, their expects.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're all, once you've done one testing framework, it's really more or less figuring out what the verbs are to do those things.
What was the unit testing framework that Velocity used?
Jasmine was.
Jasmine. Okay, yeah.
And that's what he's talking about here. But you can use Mocha for that. You can use Chai for that. There's other ones too. But again, you kind of want to land on. To me, what I look for is what is a lot of the community using. What's the one that seems to be supported? Like if I had a question, we were talking about this earlier. Oh, Jeff's talking about this earlier. When you talking about React, like you want to go with something that if you need to ask a question, someone can help with, especially in context of Meteor. And you know, going into your messing React, you kind of know, Jeff, that that's not the case now, and you're having fun learning and all that, but you know there's not much out there. You don't expect a ton, but which I'm proud of you for that. I'm proud of you
If
for
I
that.
was to start this project over again, I would probably do it.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think I'm better off for doing it because I'm going to be a couple of steps ahead if React is the ongoing improvement.
Well, I suspect React is going to be part of the mix regardless, because there are going to be certain things that it just makes sense, and MDG is moving towards treating it as an equal citizen, even if it doesn't do everything Blaze does. It does other things,
Meteor, it's just as simple as downloading from meteor.com and then choosing your front end engine. weighing the pros and cons.
So here's the thing. This is what I think. I don't have Matt DeBurgalis and Jeff Schmidt here and the rest of the team to validate what I'm about to say.
You got Mike Barkus.
But I got Mike Barkus, and he'll nod at least. He'll nod and smile.
silently.
But
Judging
this is the way I look at it. Is when I look at what a group, any organization I look at, what have they done in the past, and the past will usually predict the future in a lot of ways. And how they behave, what is their philosophy on things. While everybody's hand-wringing in Meteor Club or wherever, what is it called now, Space Dojo, or hand-wringing across the Meteor community, forums on Meteor, people are hand-wringing like React and Redux, what do I do? Oh my gosh, it's JavaScript, I'm blowing up over here. Some people, I think, it's even pushing right back into. People are saying, going, we're going back to Laravel. I'm jumping ship back to PHP or Ruby. This is so. So here's my take on it. And you brought up a good point here. Is that people go, well, what is Meteor then? What is Meteor if you're just gonna install these other things?
We're an anarcho-syndicalist
community. They're generated elsewhere. What is the deal? Well, I think if you look at what MDG's done, is this is not anything new. They have in the past pulled together multiple open source projects into a simple download and install system, and they've documented most of it fairly well, and they've made it so that people can use it. What I think will happen is, whatever they land on, this whole Blaze and React, and I don't see Angular being a thing for them. I don't even know if Angular 2 is going to be that popular, because I think React is starting to take over. But that's not to say Angular 2. People will use Angular 2. There's plenty of Angular, but I think Angular 2, the longer they've held out now on the releasing, and I don't know all the specifics of that, React is just like, it's everywhere. It's taking over space. And Angular used to be the dominant player, it seemed like, in that world. If you said, what do you use for JavaScript front end? But anyway, I think what's going to happen is, it's to your point, dude, you're kind of like the whole download thing. I think it's going to be like, just like they did Cordova. We've wrapped Cordova in here so tight that it's part of Meteor. It almost doesn't look like, they're going to have React. Let's say it's React. They pick React. They're going to have React in there, and you'll know it's React. They're not going to hide it, this React. Just like jQuery is wrapped in there. They're going to wrap it inside Meteor so tight that it's going to be documented, and it'll be a pleasure to use.
That's a core for us.
Not a quarter of it, but it'll be really easy to use. It'll be simple, and I think they'll have a lot of the pain figured out. Because I think that's what MVG does well, is I think they're good at putting those pieces together. What I see other JavaScript developers fretting over and worrying about is they're thinking about it like, how would I just kind of just smash React into Meteor right now and use it? Well, as Jeff could probably tell you, it's not so great. Someone has to kind of look at that architecture and really think about what's the best way to truly integrate it.
Yep.
So that React doesn't feel like this thing just bolted onto it. It feels like it's a part of Meteor as a framework. And I'm telling you, you look at Mongo, the integration with Mongo, with jQuery, with space bars, everything that MVG's done in the past, Cordova, why would they do any different? That's kind of been their history. That's what they've done. I think that's what they're working on now. I think they can't talk about it because they can't promise anything. And every time they speak publicly, people get ticked off and frustrated, and they're in a weird predicament. Some of it's self-induced and some of it's not their fault, but it's where they're at. So I don't worry about it, because guess what? Blaze works. I'm going to use Blaze. I think if, like Jeff, it doesn't hurt to learn some React stuff. I think it's cool to check it out. But my plan is to keep blazing forward with Blaze and just kind of keep an eye on what happens in those worlds, and watch Jeff struggle and other people struggle. And then when they drop the React thing, that I can just push a button and it gives me Blaze functionality, but React's in between. And I'll be happy. That would be my dream, is that actually React is somehow in there, but I don't have to do a ton of React specific stuff, and I can still do Blaze-like functionality, but React is driving it, because React is way fast. That's something that gets missed. One of the reasons people are talking about React is it's super fast, and Blaze is not known for being fast. And Angular 1 seems like people said it was slower. I mean, these are generalities, but Angular 2 is supposed to be a lot faster.
Did you notice Angular 1 and Angular 2 have two different websites?
No, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, even though they're the same framework.
Yeah, well, it's a big
Apparently
change.
radically different.
It is a big change though. Angular 2 is like, and I don't want to disparage Angular 2. There's going to be a ton of people using it, and this is the whole thing, is like nobody's.
It's
There's
the
room
Wild
for all
Wild
these
West.
frameworks. There's no Meteor's not going to be the thing that for everybody, more than you name it.
React
Stack
isn't React backed up by Facebook?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's got a very specific way of being used that
That may not
works
be
for
attracting people.
works for how Facebook wants it to function. It doesn't mean it's
Whereas
to fit
Angular
everywhere.
is backed up by Google, but
Yes,
it's
it is.
not the same way. It's React is more community driven, well, with oversight from Facebook. But
The Facebook overlords are having a lot of input, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know the dynamics. You may know more about it. I do not know the dynamics of their communities. It's hard for me to keep up. Meteor is exciting enough. There's enough drama in the Meteor community for me. I don't know about you guys, but I'm
so
loving it.
from your experience,
A lot of drama.
A lot of drama.
A lot of drama.
Drama on the
So
high seas.
I don't know much of the Meteor specifically with the React Blaze stuff like this.
Yeah.
Are they like easily influenced by big guys like Facebook
It just depends
or
on.
Google?
You mean like as far as it?
As far as React versus Angular versus other.
I think it just depends on how the company handles the open source project. Like, if it's like talking about Swift is the same kind of deal where Apple is really Swift to open source.
Mhm.
You know, some companies choose to do a super hands-on,
Yeah,
you know,
Visual Studio
draconian, like we're gonna do as much as we can to drive it, and we're gonna accept. You know, MBG, for instance, I mean, they're real particular about how stuff gets in, and they have a real system and all that, and it drives some people crazy, and other people it makes a lot of sense. You know, somebody has to kind of run these things, and someone has to make the decisions on the process for this. PHP is a good example of what happens when you have a super loose, no process core system.
Islands.
Well, not even islands. Like PHP for a long time just let everything, like there was not a lot of review. Yep, that looks good. It sort of works. It's in. And PHP didn't have, you know, a lot of process. And I'm not saying that's bad or good. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just different.
I
It's
think
just
that actually helped.
Yeah.
And
Well,
now
it
they're
helped make
coming back
PHP
and
like a dominant thing that's available on every server because it was flexible and has all kinds of stuff in it for sure. So it's no judgment on what's better, what's not. It's like, but you're right. Every community is different. Like I can guarantee you, Google handles the Angular's community different than Facebook handles React, and neither one, I think, is probably. I don't think either that makes one better than the other. It's just you personally may not like something about it. Like there's definitely people that don't like how MVG handles a community, but there's people that are fine with it, and there's people that might be cheering for it because maybe they've been in other communities and saw how it is when things are handled real loose. But you know, MVG's people and Google's people and Apple's people and all that, and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to make people upset. They're not going to make everybody happy. But yeah, I think they're all completely. You're going to see they're handled differently. And we're in an era now of open source frameworks being started by companies and then sponsored by companies from the get-go. This is a different open source world than a lot of us came out of, where like Drupal was created really by an individual. That was really the open source that I have kind of grown into, where things were started just by somebody like one of us at a table that started something and became a meetup and said, like a user group, and said, hey guys, you should help out. And it grows like that. And then the companies come on board later, like Acquia came on way later. There was no Acquia at the beginning, but Google, MVG, Apple, all of these the companies now, it's like the other way around. Like, we are the company, we're going to open source it, and we're all doing it for our own, you know, commercial advantages. And again, nothing wrong with that, but it is different. Totally different feel. So, anyway, so that's good stuff to talk about. I'm going to show you guys how this thing works here. So I'm basically, this is the test. This is not what you would use to test. This is what you'd use to play with testing. The way, at least the way Sam describes it, doesn't mean this is how you should test by any means. With that said, there is a new Meteor guide. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but MVG is working in the community on this Meteor guide, and the reason I want to bring it up is that Meteor guide is going to have a testing section, so people can contribute to it. So to me, this is an example of an MVG trying to reach out. I mean, they have the first thing they say is contribute. If you are interested in helping out, the best way to do it. This is them reaching out. So when people complain about them not taking community stuff, I mean, they're at least trying. Not, you know, again, nobody's perfect, but I really do like how they're handling this. So there's a live site for this, and this is going to be a much better than the API page that we all grew up in Meteor with. Like it's been more than a year or two, but yeah, but this guide is super opinionated. The point of this is the opinionated, like, this is as close as you can get to MVG core saying this is how you should write your Meteor apps. And so all of that stuff, whatever happened with React and Blaze and all that, will eventually go in here. All the testing stuff, the reason I want to bring it up, there's going to be a testing section when 1.3 drops or somewhere around that time. There's going to be a testing section where they're actually going to make recommendations on using Chimp. Sounds like they're going to go with Chimp for acceptance, and they're going to say, I think they're recommending, the rumor is they're going to recommend Mocha for maybe integration testing and unit testing. So I think that's cool. Like URLs and routing. Here's what they recommend for routing. I think, are they recommending flow router? Yeah, they're recommending flow router. They're not recommending iron router.
Wow.
So this doesn't mean you have to, and they're not telling you have to do Meteor this way. They're saying this is their best practices, what they believe, what the community and the NDG believe is the way to do it. Meteor's super flexible, you don't do that. So anyway, let's get this going. So the first thing, once you check this out, you want to do is you're going to want to run npm install, and this is going to install all of the tools that you need for testing. Well, there is a package JSON, and you may want to, like, if you're going to put some of this testing stuff in your own application, you can go ahead and go into this package JSON, copy it, and you can change any of the dependencies you don't know. Like if I'm not using React, then I do not need the JSX preprocessor. But Jeff wants to write testing for his React stuff. You may want the JSX preprocessor, whatever that does. I would get rid of the React tools. I would get rid of Velocity CLI because I'm not using that. The Karma stuff I would leave. It's probably not going to hurt anything to just leave it the way it is. It's just extra stuff if you it has to load. So it's still installing, as you can see. Now what's nice about this is, and I have tested this has been an issue that I've been trying to battle with, and he solved it in his testing setup, is this actually has a continuous integration later on a CI test. And we'll take a look at it here in a second, but he's got that figured out, so that's done. So running it in Jenkins or CodeShip or any of those integration frameworks is there. So now that we've installed that, let's go back. Install. Okay, so all right, so there's two options. There's two main options for running this. So if you run npm start from the root, I mean, if you notice I don't know if you noticed in the package JSON, but he actually made an alias more or less in the package JSON that says if you call npm start, basically point to this binary or the script. And there's a couple of scripts that are in the root here. If you go in the .scripts folder, start.js and test.js, these are scripts that he wrote. This is the thing where you guys have heard me talk about writing DevOps stuff and JavaScript. No, this is what kind of got me thinking through that. So this is let's open this up. This is certainly interesting. So npm start is used when in development mode. So when you're developing, it allows you to test drive your development using Cucumber. npm test is used to run a full test suite either locally or on CI. So think of npm start as you're going to continuously, it's going to just sit there and watch and run tests over and over as you develop, right? So you're doing developments that when you run the npm test, that's really just a one-time run through the tests and then dump that command line. You could use both in development depending on what you're doing. He did a nice flowchart. This is what blows me away. He spent a lot of time documenting. So here's npm start, you run it. It starts the main Meteor process. Is the mirror flag set? Now this is beautiful. This is magic. If the mirror flag is set, which is basically an environment variable, then start another Meteor process. Why would you want to do this? Well, you might want to do this even locally if you've already got a Meteor database going through your application and you have things set up a certain way, maybe you've got the test data in it and you're testing manually. And you don't want your testing framework to mess with any of that. You don't want it to, or to misreport that things are working when they're not because you've got old data in there. This will basically, if you do mirror, which I recommend, it fires off a brand new empty database or attaches to an existing database. But that's why when you do testing, you should set up and break down all of your data in the database so that start off fresh every time. If you don't set the mirror flag, it's just going to start up Chimp and go straight to using the database it's built in. And I think he normally runs like your default Meteor app runs on port 3000 unless you change flags. I think he's got it set where the script actually runs the mirror on 3100 in case you're interested. And then Chimp starts run tests either against the main Meteor processor and the mirror. Now the development loop startup trigger. when I started using Chimp a month or so ago, this was not working, but it's now working where anytime you save a file to make a change, as soon as Meteor builds, it'll rerun the test automatically. Which sounds like, well, that should be expected, and why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because someone had to figure out if I'm using Chimp, which is only just connecting via DDP, how in the world would Chimp externally know that Meteor has rebuilt? So they had to solve that problem. That was a tough one to figure out. So, so if you have in your scenarios, if you have an app focus tag, then it will run those. If the previous step passes, Chimp additionally runs scenarios that have both the focus and at critical tags. And then, it can reports to console its findings. So in your Meteor console, in the scripts console, you'll see all the test success failures and all that stuff. And then it'll keep running, anytime a file's changed, it'll keep running that over and over. And there's the environment variable for mirror. He's saying for what it's worth, we prefer to run without a mirror. I don't really know why, but I guess if you don't want to lose I guess if you don't have data to lose, that's fine. But I usually muck around. Like my main Meteor development app, I've got stuff I'm throwing in it and changing stuff. And I've had scenarios where tests run and say that they pass, but they shouldn't have passed because I've got data that already exists. It's passing it. Now, npm test, this is if you want to run all the tests in sequence, either locally on CI or use npm test. Here's what the script does. You run it. First thing that happens is the unit and component tests run with Karma. Did they pass? Yes or no? If no, they don't pass, then it just skips on and goes and exits with a exit code of 1 or exit code of 0. That's, by the way, critical for continuous integration. For Jenkins or CodeChip or any of these systems to know whether a build passed or not, it needs to have a clear exit status in command line. It really doesn't need anything else. I mean, what other stuff can be informational that it can capture, but it really needs to know did it pass or not. Then after that, if it passed in the unit, component test run with Meteor velocity, pass yes or no. So there's unit test block, there's integration, and same kind of deal. And then after that, then it runs all the acceptance end to end, which probably makes a lot of sense because these acceptance end to end tests take longer to run. So it makes sense that if you're going to have a failure, don't run through all those before you run through unit tests. Starts Chimp, it runs the ignore, run all scenarios unless they've been tagged with ignore. So there's another tip for you. If you tag something with ignore, it'll skip it. Reporting. Now this is his commercial stuff, and hey, that's cool. If a Simian API key is set, then push it out to report to Simian, and you can do that if you want. And then otherwise report to console, all scenarios passed. And by the way, that's a classy way to do it too. He's not making you use Simian whatsoever, but it's a great way to promote Simian, and I hope he makes a bunch of money on it. That's sweet. So it's a well thought out system. Let's see how it works. So let's get the start the unit test runner. We'll use Karma to do that. So it fired off an instance of Chrome it's connected to. And you can see here it's saying that Karma's server starting browser Chrome, connected to socket is the ID that's tracking. It executed 4 tests and all 4 were successful. So in theory, at this point, I should be able to these are the components that it's running tests on. And if I look at so I think that's what it's running is this components directory under test. And I should be able to go under here. Actually, I don't know if that's Jasmine that it ran or not. That's the thing though. I don't know what tests actually fired. All right. Well, I'm not ready to talk about this. I'm gonna skip this for now. That's magic. Just run tests. I haven't really been focusing on this part of it, so I'm not gonna say stuff that's incorrect. But you actually leave that piece running, and then we can go to npm start, and we'll do it without a mirror, just because we don't need a mirror. But if you did a mirror, you just say with mirror equals 1 npm start. So what I'll do is I'll leave that open and running over there, and I'll start. I actually hit start and it actually launched.
Launch the light bulb.
Internet of Things.
And, oh, it didn't run. And there's a reason it didn't run. It didn't run because I don't have Meteor running. Now you might say, well, why did these tests over here on the left side run? Well, they ran because they ran outside of, they don't need Meteor to do those tests. So let's get Meteor running. I'll just open up a new window. No, I need to go to the source folder. So the Meteor app's running is actually in the source folder. So I want to say Meteor, which I told Sam about this, and he actually said that he recommends that. I had another Meteor. I had another Meteor app running. Okay, so Sam said that he recommends having all your testing stuff a layer up and then make a source or some other folder and put your Meteor app in that folder below. So let's run Meteor. It should fire off now. All right, it's running. It says Jasmine server integration has started at Mirror, so it's picking that up. And you see velocities here. This is the old velocity stuff. 15 tests passed. But this is where you could say, I want to transfer $100 to some account number. And I don't know what really happens there. But anyway, maybe it doesn't need to do anything. Maybe it's magic bank stuff. So now let's try this again. npm start. It still did not work.
We have the latest Node.js.
Yeah. I don't think that's the issue. That's a fairly generic error message.
I know, I need those.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Something went wrong. Wow.
Does it automatically
Okay.
try to start on another port? Is that what it's saying? It's on port 2000.
Maybe I actually need to not be running it. Maybe that's the problem. Let me kill this. Maybe I don't need to run that. Maybe it will fire it. That's what it was. Okay, I did not need to run Meteor first. That was the problem. This thing fires off Meteor. So that was issue. There we go. Now Chimp's running, and you should see Chimp now actually execute some tests here in a second. So in this left window, that was our Jasmine integration test, and here goes Chimp. Chimp's going to do some stuff. See it transferred $20 to some account number it knew. And there's your tests. There's all the tests it ran. That's what Chimp tests look like. And he had them listed as critical focus. So here's what's kind of cool is if so all the testing stuff's working. So if we were to go to if I go to the test folder and I go to features, here's the mobile deposit feature. It looks like that one has not. That one did not run. Now notice this one did not run because it did not have a focus or critical set to it. Deposit check by number from some bank. Don't think it ran. All that ran was account has sufficient funds. Account holder, same bank money transfers. They only ran those. So if I go up here, I could say, I think if I do app focus, I'll do critical too, because I think it'll need that to run both. I think focus may only run one. I don't. Well, let me try. Now it should rerun stuff. And we had a failure. So this is probably on purpose, I imagine, is that he's got a failure so that you could go work the code and make that pass. It's part of the test. But notice what failed was when I transferred $20 to James's bank account, no such element. Element cannot be located on the page using the given search parameters, which that says that whatever the feature is using to hook into that piece of the UI to do the test is not working. But the other thing I want to show you is, in theory, also, I'm going to get rid of that focus. Get rid of that. Go back to source.
It's burning.
Fine.
Problems, yeah.
I'm going to add another, I'm going to add a line to this and save it. And we should see all the tests run below again. See, it says client modified refreshing. Let's see if the tests actually run again. Seems like they will. What's interesting is I thought that the karma tests would run again, but maybe don't. I do not know. Well, it looks like they didn't run that. Oh, those are server tests. So the karma stuff won't run again unless I change something with the server tests.
Hey Mark, this is Wesley. Can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going, Wesley?
Hey, good. Hey, in your bottom right screen, is that script just never ending?
Yes.
Okay.
There it is. No, that made it rerun this time. Interestingly enough, I saved something under the server side. Yeah, actually, both bottom screens, left and right, both of them are not. They are both continuously running, I believe.
All right.
So there's a better view of it.
And what script is that that's running?
This is the, let me drop it. It's probably about time I drop some of this in here. There is a GitHub repo that lets you kind of play with these testing setups. And I will drop it in the Meetup comments.
Cool.
So I just dropped the comment in there, but this is basically a way to play with Chimp and some of the testing best practices that Sam Team's come up with, and you can check it out, and it's got all the instructions on here. And what I've been doing is picking and choosing the parts from this that I want to use in my Meteor apps, and then pulling them into those, because I don't need everything that he's doing, but I definitely need the continuous integration stuff. But the idea is this is for development. So the idea is that you would have these things continuously run, so that as you do development, you could work on your app, save it, and when Meteor refires and rebuilds, it would actually run tests, and hopefully, like that failure that we've got here, you'd be working on it until it passed, or realize your test has got an issue with it and deal with that. Now, the other option that you have, I'm gonna kill both the scripts, but the other option is to run npm test. This should actually run the tests one time and then go away. So this is what you would run on Jenkins, or I guess like CodeShip, or what's another ones people use? Continuous integration. Now this is better here because it shows you that all the Jasmine server integration tests, and it tells you the ones that actually pass. Now that unit tests are done and integration tests are done, it's taking care of running the. All right. Chimp exited with code 0. Yay! That means everything passed. So Jenkins would then say everything's good, and so we've got Jenkins tied in with GitHub, and what that would do is that would allow GitHub to, pull request, for instance, to say yes, everything's good, and now the pull request can be code reviewed, and all tests are working, and we can kind of backtrack through here and look, but I believe the part that says 404 pass, I think those must have been unit tests, and then obviously the Jasmine stuff is integration tests. So I'd like to read more about what unit tests he has written. But anyway, this is the full setup. And maybe it's not a bad idea to use velocity now. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. If you need unit and integration testing now, then certainly he's got a pattern you could replicate and use. And this makes kind of a good best practice demo in general. And he's using Jasmine, but it does sound like that. It sounds like that MBG is going to recommend Mocha for maybe unit and integration testing. But again, I don't know how much that really matters. In the end, you can still use now that Meteor 1.3 is going to allow you to run unit tests directly against files and just include the files that you want to test and then run them. It really doesn't matter. You could almost use any JavaScript testing framework that's geared to run that way. It doesn't. In other words, it doesn't need to know it's a Meteor app. There's no reason for a unit test framework to have to understand Meteor and know that it's a Meteor app. It's just JavaScript. You should be able to test a function and say that yes, the input. Here are the inputs and here are the outputs that I expect. So that's ultimately all that matters. That makes sense. But that's kind of where I've been at now. Is I've grabbed the script files, I've grabbed the package JSON, and I've included that in some apps I'm working on. So that, and I've really been documenting instead of providing developers documentation. I've referenced some of Sam's writing, but I'm really trying to simplify it so it's easier, just the basics, the bare minimum to get somebody kickstarted so they can be productive doing development and things like that. But I'm just thrilled to have something like this, and you can actually install, like in this scenario. You remember we ran npm install, so it created the node modules folder here. So it basically installed all of this stuff, all these node modules that it needs to run. It installed all that in the repo, which is nice in a sense because you might have different requirements for different apps. But there is no reason that you can't just say npm install -g for the global Chimp. There's no reason you can't do that. And actually, I have Chimp installed that way on this machine, so that you could just run Chimp independently anytime. You don't need anything else. And I did want to throw out here. There's just a ton going on right now in testing. That's kind of want to talk about it. But I did want to mention that the documentation for Chimp is ridiculously awesome. So it's at chimp.readme.io, and some things that were that's really nice. And he kind of talks about what Chimp does here. Kind of the philosophy and stuff, but Cucumber.js or Mocha with Jasmine coming soon, and he supports Selenium and WebDriver IO. That's really to emulate your clients. This is magic, by the way. He supports Chai or Jasmine assertion libraries. I can show you why that's extra cool, what that's about. We're going to look at the features piece here. If I go under step definitions, okay, this line here is what it's about. You see where it says expect actual balance to equal balance? You can't get much more simple than that in reading code, right? If he was not supporting Jasmine assertion library, you would have to just have JavaScript say something equals something. You would have to set up the variables ahead of time. And this is while you may look at it and go, well, that's not really a big deal, Shrop. Some of the comparisons that you could do in a test might be more complicated. So I'll show you what that gives you. See if I can find that. There's a really good list out here of all the assertions it does. Yeah, sometimes they call them matchers. Included matchers. Here we go. Where are we at? I thought it was in the repo. This might be it. Here we go. So here are the matchers that you get.
Wow.
Which is super powerful. And, you could write this in JavaScript, but to have Boolean to be false, to throw array of error of type, to have number to be shorter than, to have string shorter than. I mean, this just makes life a lot easier if you're writing tests. And the other thing that's nice about it too is if you stick with Jasmine all the way through for unit integration, like he did in his automated test example. Again, this isn't the only reason you pick that, but you could have your matchers. You could use the same matchers all the way through unit integration and your acceptance testing, which is just one less thing you have to worry about learning. To not have an empty array, I mean, that's super handy, right? So here's some examples. Anyway, I thought this was really cool.
Yeah.
And the only reason I landed on just using Cucumber is because we're already using Cucumber. It's nothing to do with it being better than Mocha. I think I've looked at Mocha tests and I think they're fine. And I think it's kind of where, I think what it comes down to is a lot of these testing frameworks, they're all good. And I'm sure they have pros and cons between them, but let's see. Yeah, this was the big deal too. Chimp's aware of Meteor's hot code pushes and allows you to run code within client or server. Allows you to test deep within the Meteor context. He doesn't mention Jenkins here, but it works with Jenkins for continuous integration. You can use Phantom.js also. But here's a nice, so when you get over the Chimp docs, a place that I kind of hang out on a lot when I'm playing with Chimp is the command line options, which I've got a ticket out there to see if they can just make this part of the help for Chimp, because right now it's not. But so some of the Chimp options is you can specify a path of where the features live. By default, it assumes that the features folder where your tests are written are under the test folder. Watch just means it's going to continuously watch for changes in the features folder. Anytime you save anything in the feature folder, and then you can set which watch tags to look for. If you want anything beyond dev and watch, you could pick. Watch source is what you would pick if you wanted to watch anything in the entire source library. So anything in your Meteor app, in your change code, that would rerun tests. Let's see. Some other interesting ones. Screenshots is cool, so you can set up a path for screenshots. There's some other screenshot settings too, like screenshots on error equals false. So I've been setting, for us, I've been setting screenshots on error equals true. And what that does is that'll just throw a screenshot in the folder that you specify. You can specify the folder, and you can quickly go and see where was the client? What did it look like in the browser when it failed? It's just an extra clue when you're trying to debug stuff. You can capture all step screenshots. That's a little cumbersome, but it's cool for checking things out, I guess.
Maybe the first time you run a test.
Yeah, you just see what it looks like. That's all super handy stuff. Like I said, it can support Phantom.js. I don't know what would make you use Phantom.js, but it's there. Obviously, they would put it in there if there was some advantage to some people. I think by default, it's using Selenium. Anyway, I'll mention Simeon here too. This is a commercial piece. I'm having trouble finding this. Hold on. Got a thing. No. There we go. Anyway, he talks a bunch about just behavior-driven development and what that solves. It's pretty good read. So this is what Simian looks like. It's a screenshot. You can see the files, and there's your features. It's got some autocomplete for your step definitions and things that are already written, which is kind of cool. And you actually can do commenting and stuff right within Simian, which is pretty slick. So, pretty neat concept. Anyway, that's kind of all I had, unless you guys had questions about that. I'll try to answer anything.
So the stubs and mocks and et cetera support, the things that NDG is doing by version 1.3 is going to take it to where unit tests can be run without firing up an entire Meteor instance. Am I getting that correct?
You would still have to stub like Meteor objects, but you don't have to do, it won't be as nasty as probably what it has been before, what I've heard with Velocity. In other words, there was a lot of like stub files that we were having to use. I know Dieter and I have used some of those where people would send in, here's stubs for a bunch of Meteor stuff. I think you could just stub it out on your own as you wrote your tests. So if you were using meteor.users and meteor.users didn't exist because you're running outside of your context, then you could just say Meteor users, you could just declare it and say, this is what this object is, and you declare exactly what it is in your setup for your test. And it doesn't matter, since you're not running against some of your context, there's going to be no conflict, you're not overriding anything else. You shouldn't have any problem. You can just set it up to be exactly what you want it to be. A good way to model it, make sure you're modeling those objects right, is just actually fire up a Meteor instance of your app and look at what an example of what those objects would look like in a real world setting. But so you still have to stub it because the thing doesn't exist. But ultimately, I think you can kind of stub it the way you desire and want to. Like I would imagine he's got stubs in here. Yeah, see here's app stubs, here's Meteor stubs. He's just saying Meteor user ID equals empty function, calls empty function. That way in the test, if it's called, it's not gonna blow up. So. See, even subbed out account holders because that's specific to his app because it's about bank transactions or something. So anyway, so I really do think this is a great repo because it's a real study on JavaScript testing, even non-Meteor specific, but it's a real study. Like I learn stuff every time I look inside this guy. See, he's even got Circle. He's got a YAML file for Circle CI, which is the continuous integration framework. But he's already saying this is how he's set up, and this is how he's giving you everything you need really to tweak it to work for your setup. Really pretty neat. We actually, yeah. Oh yeah, so here's another mention that's handy. Under the content folder, there's some documents he's working on, which are pretty handy. Testing pyramid, for instance. Okay, he doesn't have it here yet. Anyway, it looks like he's starting to put docs here. This is a good document. Testing success factors. Test scripts do not equal executable specifications.
Says they're not exactly like specifications.
Yeah. This one is a really good read. I would definitely definitely recommend checking that out. This is the part I really like in this lesson too, saving the natural language test scripts. Um,
What?
so in summary, you can't expect unit tests to work alone. You need service tests to make sure they work together, which I guess service tests or integration tests, basically. That's where I take it. Anyway, this is a really good article to check out. So again, I think this repo, not only is it showing you specifics about testing Meteor app, but it's talking about, Sam's really trying to educate people on actually good testing practices, no matter what you're running. You could read this article here and it would give you good info, no matter if you're going to PHP or Rails or whatever, on Meteor. So, and I know I could always use improvement on just how I look at testing and applications and that sort of thing. And lately, I've actually been exploring the idea. This is a Meteor app that we have at Classic, but I've been exploring the idea that Jeff knows about this because we're chatting about it. But we're trying to improve some alerting systems, alerts that we get when the app's having trouble or whatever. One of the things that came up is there was actually a situation that can happen where users can't log in, but the app looks to be running. Which can happen for various reasons. One reason is if the database isn't available. The app might show the login page, but you connect to the database for some reason, get data. The login doesn't work. Is one thing that came up was, we could actually have tests that run, not the same suite of tests you would run for full regression and that sort of thing, but we could actually have specific tests that are geared to run in production on a schedule, and then throw alerts if those tests fail. Like, you want to be real careful with that, but that's another great way to find issues, because I think the idea is with your apps is to find the issues and alert DevOps or developers before the client alerts you. And even if the client alerts you before you had a chance to contact the client, you can at least confidently and honestly say, we know, and we were about to let you know, but we were already working on it. We see the issue. Nothing's worse than, having the client call you, or certainly every time the client calls an issue and it looks like you're, I don't know, what's your problem? What's happening?
It is down.
Yeah, let me go check. And
You don't say.
Everyone has to admit, we've all been there.
It's a wonderful moment.
Yeah, we've all been there. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, more like an ass.
You don't have.
Yeah.
Well, Wesley, I'm glad you joined us remote. You still around?
Yeah, sorry I couldn't make it up there. I didn't realize it's about 45 minutes away from uptown.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a drive, either direction.
Yeah.
We feel the
Yeah,
same
it is.
way when we drop from Concord uptown.
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
I feel your pain in the other direction.
I've many times,
Yeah.
yes.
Let's just say.
We're gonna try to do the Zoom calls though, and then, but yeah, it'd be awesome too to have you out sometime, Wesley, when it works for you.
Cool. Yeah, and are you guys going to come to the, are you guys going to stick to the Concord one and probably not go to the one in Uptown as much?
Well, you probably jumped on a little later, but beginning closer to the 7 o'clock start, we were talking about that. I haven't heard. I kind of threw a query out to Jill and Torgny because they started that Packer Place one, and we kind of helped support it for a long time. And I haven't heard back from them yet whether they're continuing it. I more or less told them if they don't continue that one, or if they don't show up, because we've had people show up and complain because no one's there.
Yeah, I was one of those.
Well, see, when we got another one that's in the room here, Jeff Frazier, same thing happened last time.
Yeah,
Then
he knows.
We
were there together.
Oh, Wesley was there with you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much gonna just delete them. I told him I'm gonna. I think Friday. I gave him some date. I said I'm just, not like it's up to me, but I can't have the group look bad if no one's running that. If they want to step up, or anybody wants to step up and run that one, it's perfectly great. I mean, or we had somebody that hit us up, and they were maybe in Rock Hill or Fort Mill or something, and they said that they would like to have it somewhere in Uptown. I'm like, well, create a meetup. You can start a meetup.
Right.
They're asking to do it at Advent Co-working. I'm like, that sounds great. Talk to those guys and get going.
Rock on.
Because we did that with we did that successfully with the Unix lug, the Charlotte, for a number of years. We ran a university area meetup, and at the same time there's an Uptown meetup. And the only thing we coordinate in those cases is try to coordinate it so that they're on different weeks of the month, so that they didn't kind of feel like it was, competing against each other. Though I don't know how much it matters anyway, because people are gonna go to what's convenient for them, that sort of thing.
Jeff said something there about a podcast last time.
Yeah, we actually we have a Meteor related. We got a couple podcasts, HP5. I'll pull it up on the screen here, but we've got the HP5 podcast is one that we do, which is more of a productivity and lifestyle podcast. Talk about co-working and all.
Uh-huh.
It covers a lot of general topics, but a lot of stuff that's applicable. Are you a developer, Wesley?
I am.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff like living out of your backpack and everyday carry. We've covered that, how to run meetups. So a lot of variety of stuff. And then Meteor Strike is a Meteor podcast. It's a short one. It's 10 minutes. And that one, the idea of that one is we're trying to cover an interesting package each week. So.
Okay. And that's both of those are once a week?
Yes. Yeah. And they're on iTunes. We've got them queued up to go into Google Play whenever Google decides to take interest in podcasts, which I think they are. They just haven't turned it on the podcast yet. Google's taking submissions, but once we get that in there, I'll add the Google icon. But yeah, and we will probably have a security related podcast sometime soon too. Josh Jenkins is heading that up. We're starting a security meetup that Josh is running it and starting it up. I'm not starting it up. We're just facilitating the housing of it. What?
No more meetups.
Oh,
We're not running any more meetups.
Oh.
Josh can run it.
Josh can run all the meetups.
No, he can run his meetup.
yeah.
I like that.
Is that Josh?
Was that Josh?
That was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still here. Don't worry. I've been here the whole night. It's wife's just not feeling well, so I had to stay close.
I hear you.
I hear you, man. But anyway, Josh has been talking about, you've been talking about doing a podcast and kind of getting set up for it, but yours is a little more complicated because you're talking about doing some videos, so it's a little hairier.
Yeah, that plan may get redoed here soon enough.
Redoed?
Redoed.
Okay.
Well, if you want to get going on something, I recommend doing audio only as a start if it's easier. There's nothing wrong with that. I guess it depends on the format you want to do though.
Yeah, I'm still working on it, so.
And the other thing is you could have interview style. I mean, interview style can be an option too, where you have people come in. But I will say this, one thing that's been a real win is doing, I think people really have a desire for shorter podcasts. Because Wesley, do you listen to podcasts some?
Oh yeah.
So
I just got them. I just got those two on my iPhone just now.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Do you use Overcast or what's your podcatcher of choice?
I just use iTunes.
You got anything? Well, the some of the podcasts, like I don't know which ones you listen to, but some of the ones I listen to, they can get like some of them are like hour and a half to 3 hours of being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's like there are some that like I don't listen to all those, but there's some that are interesting enough where I can listen to some of them. But we kept Meteor Strike on purpose at around 10 minutes, and we keep the HP5 one on purpose to right around 30 because
We could go on.
And they could go. We could easily go longer.
We can, yeah,
one of those,
surprisingly.
We love listening to each other talk.
Yeah, I think people get, they got stuff to do, and unless you have a super long commute on a train or something or whatever, you're just not gonna.
I don't know that we're that interesting. If somebody's got 2 or 3 hours, but we definitely could overrun 30 minutes easily.
Half an hour is good. That's
Yes,
good.
it is.
Only had an hour and a half to meet one way.
Yeah. Well, you can always pause the podcast and start it. That's the beautiful part of it.
True.
You don't have to listen to it in one sitting, but.
I do have one.
Leslie, if you got any thoughts, if you listen to our podcast and have any thoughts, man, speak, holler at us.
Certainly, I'll give you guys some feedback.
I appreciate it.
Cool.
No problem.
Especially if you have future topic ideas. We always open for those.
All right.
Yeah, especially Meteor packages, because we're trying to find some that are like, we don't want to just do the obvious one.
Flow router.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we might need flow routers sometime for people that are new to Meteor, but we don't want to necessarily just rehash the same ones everyone's probably already using.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Does anybody else have anything or?
That's
I
good.
did not win Powerball. Of course, I didn't play Powerball. I probably would have
Those
helped.
might be connected.
There's a direct correlation, I'm sure.
Imagine if you would have played, you would have been like,
I would have been like, wow, I could have done
I
something
suppose.
with $2. I could have bought something smart like cigarettes.
Yeah.
Half a pack of cigarettes.
At least a couple cigarettes.
Half a bag.
Yeah, maybe a quarter of a pack.
Yeah,
I don't know what those are these days.
they're probably expensive, I imagine.
Probably.
You could have told yourself, I supported education. And then realized that they actually reappropriated the funds to other things.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's weird.
But not surprising.
Well, cool. Josh or Wesley, do you guys have anything else before we wrap up?
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Cool. Well, it sounds like we've got a topic for next month, and Jeff and a few people are going to help out with that. But we're going to break down the Blaze versus React versus Angular 2 and versus anything else that comes up in JavaScript world
In the next one,
in the next month.
Sure.
Um,
I'm really
which
looking
will
forward
probably
to
be a couple more things.
the presentation on chest of drawers. Guys.
it'll be like a hand wringing. It'll be the hand wringing meetup,
Yes.
so we can hand wring over what to use.
3 front-end frameworks enter, 1 front-end framework leaves.
Actually, it's more like 3 enter and 3 leaves. That's really what it's like.
And we're still handling.
And everybody's still confused.
I think that'll be
Sad
good.
but true.
Well, I'm looking forward to Meteor 1.3. It's going to have some good stuff.
I can't wait till 1.4. I can't wait till we start talking about all the great things that will be fixed in 1.4.
1.4.
All the really maddening, confusing things that
Yeah.
they'll fix in 1.4.
It'll be Nathan.js. They're gonna have Nathan.js in there. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate everybody for tonight, and we will see you next month, if not before.
Excellent.
Cool. Yeah. See you guys later.
Have a good evening.
Hey, Wesley.
All right.
Have a good day.